What's up, everybody? I told you we'd be right back. I'm here with my co-commentator, Len Duel, and we will be bringing you Joseph Selmer, the modern gamer, versus William Marks.
Yeah, two players we didn't see on stream yesterday. These are going to be two new teams for you. Should be pretty fun.
Two brand new teams, nothing we've ever seen before, I'm sure. Len and I yesterday had a discussion, or was that 2 days ago, on how varied we thought the teams we would see would be. I think Len was probably more correct than myself because we saw Vivian and Greninja among things like Clefairy.
We saw both Vivian and Greninja twice.
Yeah, twice. Caracosta and Top Cut. I was not expecting such variation at this tournament. You definitely got me there.
So one of these two teams doesn't really have all that much of that variation. It's going to be that Metagross, Amoonguss, Tyranitar core we've seen a lot. That's going to be from William Marks. Team on the other side, a combination we've seen a lot, the Manectric, Snorlax, Tapu Fini.
You know, but with a little twist.
Yeah, one more new Pokemon you didn't expect to see on stream today.
I didn't expect it to see it at this tournament.
Virizion. If you remember that that's a Pokemon, if you remember that those three legendaries still exist.
What? So I can see on the game footage that William is from Michigan. That means that we have two invaders here. They're not California players. Arizona is where Joseph hails from, and apparently Michigan is where William is from. We see team preview coming on the screen. On your left, Joseph, the modern gamer, not repping that modern gamer tag in game anymore, I see. Manectric, Porygon 2, Snorlax, Tapu Fini, Incineroar, and you see that correctly, Virizion versus Metagross, Tyranitar, Amoonguss, Zapdos, Landorus, Therian, and Tapu Lele. You know, the right team looking pretty standard, and the left team not exactly unstandard, it's just that twist with the Virizion.
Yeah, it's going to be that combination using Manectric Intimidates to support either Tapu Fini, maybe Calm Mind, or maybe just Tapu Fini as an attacker, and then Snorlax definitely is something to set up and try to sweep this game.
Oh, wow. They went really fast. I mean, when you have top 8 start on the next day, you have a lot of preparation time, and it seems that both players made the use of their time well.
Yeah, and so going right in, even though these teams weren't on stream, maybe talk to some other players, figured out what to expect, and had decided what to lead ahead of time.
I feel Virizion is not a great pick for this matchup. I don't think we're going to see it on stream today. We see the Metagross Tapu Lele leads from William, while we see Porygon 2 Manectric from Joseph.
Yeah, these leads are why Virizion is not a great idea. Two Psychic attackers on the other side. Virizion does not like that. Manectric and Porygon 2 are led. Manectric can Mega Evolve here. The would Mega Evolve before that Metagross, though, and so you'd just be intimidating Clear Body. Wouldn't be surprised to see a Protect, just to see if you can bait out the Metagross Mega Evolution first, and then actually land that Intimidate that you definitely want. Porygon 2 maybe could go for some support here, but a little bit vulnerable if it's targeted very strongly by both Tapu Lele and Metagross could actually be KO'd. This is a pair of Pokemon that can put out a lot of damage very quickly.
Oh, absolutely. The Psychic Terrain is so good. It's essentially a free choice item. Metagross switching out for Amoonguss, going to offer its partner Tapu Lele some redirection in the later games. Doesn't really care about Manectric Mega Evolving, hoping not to switch into an Overheat or something of the sort. Manectric going into its Mega form, going to intimidate those Pokemon, but being intimidated for these guys, no issue at all. They're special attackers and a support Pokemon in the Mushroom. So the Intimidate basically doing nothing. The Volt Switch coming out onto the Amoonguss, even going the Intimidate onto the hypothetical Metagross not mattering too much because you're just going to get right out of there, not risking Manectric just yet. Joseph taking his, not too much time really, in choosing his next Pokemon as Incineroar comes out. Something that doesn't care too much about the offensive presence of Tapu Lele with that Dark Fire typing. Taunting the Porygon 2, preventing the Trick Room, but just going for the foul play, probably into the Metagross slot, as it would do a huge amount of damage to it.
Yeah, that giant Metagross attack stat being used in a super effective way back on Metagross itself would be awesome. Instead, it hits Amoonguss for pretty minimal damage. Tapu Lele revealing the taunt there. We saw Tapu Lele in the first game, the first round of this top 8 also. Good way to limit the support options on your opponent's side. Now that Porygon 2 is just going to be stuck attacking. Not something it does especially well. Wouldn't be surprised to see it leave the field. Incineroar out here, unable to fake out because of that Psychic Terrain. But like you mentioned, not really worrying too much about the offense of these two Pokemon. Tapu Lele can go for a Fairy attack for neutral. Same type attack, boosted damage against Incineroar, but that's a Pokemon with pretty high special defense. Doesn't mind that too much.
Tapu Lele getting out of there, doesn't want to deal with any potential damage from that Incineroar. Landorus makes its appearance, intimidating the Incineroar, trying to just cut down that damage a little bit, make sure that Amoonguss can't be KO'd through a Flare Blitz. The Ice Beam coming out, going to be big damage to that Landorus. That's
What
a
a
KO for free. Excellent.
Yeah, choosing not to Ice Beam the Amoonguss slot, but the Tapu Lele slot.
And now getting that unpunished Flare Blitz onto the Amoonguss. If that's a KO, this might be game over. And it is.
Wow.
Oh, it's a critical hit. That actually could have mattered because of the Intimidate.
Yeah, especially with that Intimidate. That critical hit means it's so much more damage coming out. Picks up the KO on Amoonguss, gets 2 KOs on 1 turn. Can we talk about how great that read was?
That Ice Beam was fantastic. I mean, and really, not a ton of risk in using it either if Amoonguss redirects, you know.
Yeah, and then Ice Beam probably Tapu Lele, or rather Porygon 2's best offensive output at that point. Neither of those Pokemon were going to take too much from foul play, and so just would be decent chip damage on Tapu Lele. Instead, you do call the Landorus switch in and do so much.
Return to the original leads as well from William.
Yeah, and so Incineroar loves this. It can, if it doesn't take a Stomp and Tantrum, get a lot of damage out.
Tapu Fini coming out, you know, changing that terrain up, removing not only the Psychic type boost for the Tapu Lele, but weakening the Zen Headbutt possibility from the Metagross as well. Porygon 2 looking incredibly threatening here because of the possibility of foul play. Wouldn't be surprised too much by a Protect in that slot while Lele tries to deal out some damage to build up a bit of better positioning. The Iron Head instead of the Zen Headbutt, probably realizing the possibility for that terrain to be gone or just not carrying the Zen Headbutt at all. As we see the Z move from Tapu Lele, probably targeting that Porygon 2 slot, as Incineroar was in the Fini slot just a moment ago. Don't want to burn your Psychic type Z move into a Dark type Pokemon.
Yeah, and Psychic Terrain, this combination of moves is probably the KO on Porygon 2. You then block that foul play from coming out. But I think in Misty Terrain, Porygon 2 may be able to take this, and if it does, that foul play will land onto Metagross. We'll have to see.
Hanging on with just a bit in the red health of foul play, hitting that Metagross is going to be huge damage thanks to Metagross' own large attack stat, doing about 75%. The taunt wearing off, but not too important because at this point in the game, you should be able to remove the Porygon 2.
Yeah, remove the Porygon 2 quickly if you want, and I would expect Porygon 2 just wants to be attacking anyway. Would love to land a second foul play and get the KO on that Metagross. Tapu Fini in a decent spot here, probably unlikely to be able to be KO'd from a combination of 2 attacks from those 2 Pokemon, which means can get out of Muddy Water that would KO Metagross and deal decent damage to that Tapu Lele. Just looking like a matter of time for Joseph here.
Absolutely. It's time to think about adjustments on Williams' side, I would say.
Yeah, and you know, generally we talk a lot about adjustments going from game 1 to game 2, but it's interesting in this game was so defined by that one critical turn.
Yeah. I mean, big reads like that are what define Pokemon games. You see the Tapu Fini Protect, not wanting to risk that just yet. He knows that it's valuable and can easily position into an offensive slot later. Porygon 2 being KO'd, but not important. Something that easy to accept. If he wasn't KO'd, he would take the Metagross with him, basically.
And happy to probably have it KO'd to get the change in field position, get Manectric back on the field, get the Intimidate, and then be threatening to just outspeed and KO this Metagross.
Or you potentially double tap the Tapu Lele in the event that Metagross protects. Might not want a 1-on-3 situation is so much harder than a 2v3.
Yeah, I mean either way, if you can get 1 KO here, likely winning you the game. Interesting, Tapu Lele, even Metagross Protects probably can't KO either of these. Outside of Psychic Terrain, shouldn't be able to one-hit KO that Manectric now that it has burned its Shattered Psyche. So a really safe position for Joseph here.
Especially considering that you have Incineroar in the back, who's considered a solid check to these 2 Pokemon. Volt Switch picking up the KO on the Metagross, no problem there. It was about 25% health. Tapu Lele going to have to make a stand right here. Incineroar is going to return to the field. You know, not a fan, or Tapu Lele, not a fan of this big cat. I personally love big cats myself. But, you know, we can't all have such good opinions. The Moonblast coming out right onto that Tapu Fini. If you can get the special attack drop, which we do see, you might be able to last just a bit longer, but I really do think that it's really just time to think about what you're going to do for Game 2.
Yeah, start trying to figure out what you can do differently. One place to start may be that you got that taunt on Porygon 2, but I'm not sure it would have ever wanted to go for a support move anyway.
Yeah.
You know, something like a Trick Room just limits what your Manectric can do out of the back. Instead, you spend the turn taunting it, and then it happily gets a 1-hit KO with Ice Beam, gets so much damage on a Metagross with foul play. You're just allowing it to do a lot. Instead, maybe just needs to target down and get rid of that Porygon 2, make sure that Ice Beam doesn't land, that foul play doesn't land. Something like a Shattered Psyche, if it's in the Psychic Terrain combined with Iron Head, should be the KO.
Tapu Lele just going to go for the Protect because the Fake Out was so easy to do, preventing that with the Manectric switch in, just positioning himself, playing it safe. There's no need to rush. I would kind of like to, before we have to go into a deeper analysis because this didn't make an appearance, talk about Virizion and being an interesting choice on this team because I really like the sort of containment that Joseph used. Incineroar, Fini, Porygon 2 really worked out well against this Metagross Lele offense.
Yeah, you know, Pokemon that are all able to either take a hit or outspeed Metagross like Manectric can. Make sure you have flexibility to get an attack off when you need to.
Moonblast hitting that Tapu Lele once again. Seeing the revenge special attack drop, but again, at this point in the game, probably not mattering too much. Misty Terrain leading the field, but as there were no status moves being thrown around, not too important. It does not boost the power of Fairy-type moves.
Nope. Just a matter of time. The forfeit actually does come out, so we're just going to move straight on to game 2.
Maybe not wanting to reveal the item there. I think that...
Well, the item was revealed in the...
Oh, yeah.
The Shattered Psyche.
Interesting. I just would have expected a forfeit a bit earlier at that point, so it made me forget that Shattered Psyche played some role in that game 1.
So yeah, the two Pokemon that William didn't bring in that game were his Tyranitar and his Zapdos. Tyranitar is interesting because it could do well against a few of those Pokemon that were brought, especially Incineroar.
Yeah.
Doesn't mind Manectric too much other than the Intimidate. But then would definitely be worried about Virizion. Pokemon that can either hit it with grass moves or fighting moves. Tyranitar really can't do that much back.
I mean,
if you don't expect Virizion to be brought, though,
exactly.
maybe Tyranitar is a good call.
Yeah, I like the idea of Tyranitar just because I think that Williams' team has enough natural deterrents for Virizion. You have Metagross and Lele both threatening the KO. Virizion does basically nothing to Amoonguss and Zapdos and Flanders, really. Virizion not on this team for this matchup. It's for other matchups. You're fine with it being there.
Yeah, and then I think the other big adjustment, Landorus Therian needs to survive longer. It can be so valuable against those Pokemon that were brought, especially if it's that Choice Scarf variant being able to outspeed Manectric, deal lots of damage to Incineroar, Tapu Fini, even Porygon 2, who doesn't like taking repeated Earthquakes. So if Landorus Therian cannot take an Ice Beam to the face as it switches in and actually get some attacks off, that could be really helpful for William.
And I mean, the Choice Scarf set, very safe assumption because it was KO'd by that Ice Beam. Generally, Assault Vest Landorus have a strong possibility of taking that. We do see a lead change up from William with bringing that Landorus early on with the Metagross at its side, while from Joseph we see Porygon 2 taking a backseat for the Tapu Fini in the lead slot.
Yeah, so immediately that Landorus is in a dangerous but also possibly valuable position. If it is that Choice Scarf variant, could just go for the KO on Landorus, but we'll get intimidated first, so may not be able to get it, and then you're worried about what Tapu Fini can do back. Metagross, probably not worried too much. Maybe Manectric has an option for a big overheat to get a lot of damage off. Combine that with something from Tapu Fini, could be a KO. But could, in the meantime, get its own Stomping Tantrum off and do a lot of damage to this Manectric. So lots of options on both sides.
Yeah, the Manectric Intimidate not looking too bad here, but again, because Metagross is slower in its base form and even in its Mega form, the clear body would still be on the field, making it a little hard to position because Intimidating Landorus just sounds so nice. You do see that Protect, trying to bait out that Mega Evolution from the Metagross slot, which just protects as well. Reading that, not just willing to let his Metagross get weakened for free. And a third Protect. So Landorus basically doing nothing here. Wouldn't be surprised to see that Earthquake. Oh, but we do. It's U-turn instead, trying to build up some positioning. Landorus not the most helpful here as it can't just spam its Earthquakes.
Yeah, and if Joseph now knows that is Choice Scarf Landorus, then he knows they can only U-turn this turn. Don't really have to worry about any offensive output from that Landorus. Neither of these Pokemon mind U-turn too much. Manectric taking that -1 U-turn pretty well. That leaves you free to either go after whatever comes in for the Landorus slot or just go after Metagross.
Yeah, Joseph just both players deciding pretty fast. Metagross going up for the Amoonguss. Doesn't want to take any free damage. Metagross so vital to the game plan of these archetypes. Amoonguss not really caring about the offensive pressure of Tapu Fini or Manectric.
Unless that overheat comes out towards Metagross, can do a lot of damage to Amoonguss.
And we saw in the previous turn that Joseph can position himself in a way where he can pick up free KOs on the switch. The Intimidate coming out, helping a little bit against Landorus, but not too much because the U-turn wasn't going to do huge amounts of damage. Anyway, it does a decent little chunk onto the Manectric as we see that Landorus gets out of there. It could bring back the Metagross, but maybe doesn't want to risk that damage. Do you see the Tapu Lele? It's changing that terrain to the Psychic. It feels getting pretty weird.
Yeah, it's good timing to get Psychic terrain out right as you get your Amoonguss in. Allow it to start going for Spores straight off the bat.
A Volt Switch is an answer to U-turn. Hitting the Amoonguss, not too much damage, but you're using it more for the positioning anyway. Manectric getting out of there, going to bring in a partner that doesn't care too much about the presence of Tapu Lele and Amoonguss. Do I smell an Incineroar coming in?
Exactly.
That I do. Incineroar, the Fire Dark typing, not caring too much. We do see a Z move, Waterium Z, Tapu Fini, hopefully not into the Amoonguss slot. But, because Landorus was in the Tapu Lele slot just seconds ago, looking very likely that Hydro Vortex is going to hit the Tapu counterpart.
Yeah, either you're just then hitting whatever that you turn out to. And so instead it goes after that Amoonguss, maybe expecting the U-turn out to Amoonguss. Instead it was the switch out to Amoonguss. And so this Hydro Vortex, still a decent chunk of damage, but easy to just regenerate or back off.
That said, because that extra little damage might make it so that Incineroar could Flare Blitz through the Intimidate drop.
Possibly, yeah. Won't be able to fake out this turn, so going to be going straight for offense. No reason for it to switch either with not much damage output against it, so I would expect it to just immediately start going for Flare Blitzes, trying to restrict the ability to spore any. You don't want to start having all of your Pokemon falling asleep here in the Psychic Drain.
Yeah, I think a switch from Tapu Fini and an offensive just power play from Incineroar pretty likely. You don't want those spores taking you out.
Yeah, so Tapu Fini can get into the back and reset that Mystery Train for later in the game.
Manectric returning to the field. Intimidate coming out once again, but as before, the Mushroom and the Lele do not care too much. They are supportive and special attackers. It's really just for the positioning. Hoping that Psychic Attack isn't going to come into the Manectric as Amoonguss also leaves the field, bringing the Landorus back in. You know, weakening the power of Incineroar. You don't want that to have too much of an offensive presence on that relatively free turn for it.
Yeah, and Landorus coming on the field against two great targets for Earthquake.
The opposing Z-move comes out, the Shattered Psyche. Considering Incineroar was just on the left, it looks like it's going into the Tapu Fini slot. Manectric shouldn't be able to take this.
There's absolutely
even
no
outside
way.
of
Yeah,
Psychic,
Psychic Terrain, this is well more than enough damage to kill this Manectric. So that Mega's going to be going down for Joseph early here.
Yeah, you know, an early Phantom Manectric, not too much of a... It's very nice. You know, you just can't have that Intimidate support, weakening the Landorus and the Metagross, especially the Metagross. It's so scary. We do see the Retaliatory Flare Blitz going into the Landorus slot. The Intimidate making it do not too much damage, roughly 45%. Going to need 2 more unless damage roll to really pick that up.
Yeah, definitely. So that removal of Intimidate, I really think is so valuable. It's going to keep Landorus' attack stat high, keep it threatening Incineroar, keep it having good damage output against things like Tapu Fini and Porygon 2 that it can't KO very quickly, and the same thing is true for Metagross. Landorus here is immediately threatened by Ice Beam, though, may have to leave the field, just walk right back into U-turn and get out of here.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing for William in this spot is Porygon 2 got to come in for free. It's very bulky, and it also has, oddly, a very large offensive presence in this matchup because the Ice Beam isn't really enjoyed by Landorus or Amoonguss. But at the same time, if you read that, go for the Foul Play, which is very safe on a Landorus slot, you could do huge guaranteed damage onto that Metagross. You have to be very careful.
It's pretty unpredictable. Both the Foul Play and the Ice Beam might be enough to KO Landorus here, and if you guess the wrong one and Metagross comes into a Foul Play, that's devastating.
You can also just Foul Play, Flare Blitz the single slot, go for both sides of the weakness. The Superpower instead of the switch out, not willing to lose either thing. The Superpower picking it up. You know, Landorus, one of the highest attack stats in the game. Not too surprising there. Really, Incineroar going down so early, so easily. The Moonblast hitting that Porygon 2. Potential special attack drop could be very important because the Amoonguss will be able to tank it a lot better. The Ice Beam will knock out that Landorus, but Landorus, I would say, did its job there in removing the Incineroar.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just going to be Tapu Fini and Porygon 2 against the world. That's not that much damage output now that Incineroar and Manectric are down. Metagross and Tapu Lele, it's going to be easy enough for Tapu Lele to get out to the back. That Misty Train, once it comes in, will be the last time it ever changes back to Misty Train. Right. If you want to get Psychic Train back out for your Metagross and Tapu Lele combination, you can do it if you're William.
Tapu Fini and Metagross returning to the field. Tapu Fini maybe being able to support pretty well on this first turn. You need to be able to punish a possible Amoonguss switch. Tapu Fini generally bulky enough to be able to take attacks from both Metagross and Tapu Lele, especially in Misty Terrain as opposed to Psychic Terrain. You need to make this turn count.
Yeah, need to try to get something useful off if there's any setup options from Tapu Fini. If Tapu Fini is going to be your win condition, try to improve that. But if there's no setup options, you got to start going for damage quickly and hope it's enough. It's going to be very difficult, though.
Porygon 2 still looking pretty scary as well. The Foul Play possibility is definitely threatening the Metagross.
Yeah, you know, something from Tapu Fini plus that Foul Play should be enough to KO Metagross. If Metagross doesn't get that much damage out in the meantime, that's a pretty good trade.
Tapu Lele getting out of there, wants to reset that Psychic Terrain later. Amoonguss returning to the field, that Regenerator having taken effect, making it so much more healthy. The Mega form of that Mega Gross is, you know, it's floating now, but it's not actually floating. It just looks that way. Risking that Foul Play, as you see no protected, instead going for an Iron Head, potential flinch there. Muddy Water, you know, not too damaging for the Amoonguss, and Metagross should take it fairly well. An accuracy drop could matter a lot here But you do see it on the Amoonguss. Luckily, in the flinch on Porygon 2, which
Wow.
is far more important than the accuracy drop.
Yeah, that's so important because if that foul play had come out and KO'd Metagross, then you're looking at Lele and Amoonguss versus Tapu Fini and Porygon 2, and that starts to look possible for Joseph's side. Instead, there's going to be another Iron Head coming out, and just that extra added big chunk of damage should be enough to swing it, I think.
Amoonguss, once again leaving the field, wants to regenerate even more, doesn't want to deal with an accuracy drop. Psychic Terrain returning, potentially powering up that Metagross. Zen Headbutt could probably pick up the KO from here, but another Iron Head to me suggests that he doesn't even carry the move. We do see a 1 HP survival. Tapu Lele dodging the Muddy Water. A foul play or Trick Room here could be very beneficial. Probably foul play. Oh, recover, even better. Completely slipped my mind as I just hadn't seen it at all. Opting to let Megagross sit there for another turn in exchange for keeping the Porygon 2 around for an extended period of time.
Yeah, I mean, you've only got 2 Pokemon left. You've got to keep them both around. If it's just Tapu Fini taking all of these attacks, these Psychic Train boosted Psychics, these Iron Heads, it's not going to be enough. So Porygon 2 wisely recovering, staying on the field, there to help with Ice Beams against the Amoonguss. If Porygon 2 goes down, Tapu Fini shouldn't be able to handle Amoonguss at all.
Iron Head once again on the Porygon 2. Hopefully no flinch this time, but maybe irrelevant because the Psychic double tapping at Porygon 2, removing it from the field without difficulty at all. We're going to see Tapu Fini versus the world here. Muddy Water returning to the field. Someone really needs to fix that sewage problem. Hitting the Metagross, potentially picking it up, but just barely hanging on. Tapu Lele taking decent damage as well, but there's no accuracy drops. We're going to get 2 full attacks right there. Joseph considering just forfeiting because Tapu Fini's under so much pressure.
Yeah, and maybe not wanting to reveal much about this Tapu Fini. We haven't learned too much about it yet, just the Water EMZ Hydro Vortex that we did see, but not the full move pool. Now we go to 1-1 and Game 3.
High pressure situation. You really want more money. You want that extra CP. You want that chance to win this tournament. In terms of adjustments, I think that William, he didn't really change up his Pokemon selection as really opposed to the choices made. You didn't have a turn where Landorus came in and got KO'd for free. Landorus removing Incineroar was huge in this game.
I think it's interesting. Both games feel like they were defined by a moment where there was enough offensive pressure to force a switch, and then that switch resulted in a KO. In the first game, it was that Ice Beam getting the KO on Landorus. In the second game, it was that Shattered Psyche coming in and removing Manectric from the field. Those were the first 2 KOs of both of those games, and I think really defined both games. It's going to be interesting to see if either player can, again, maneuver themselves into a position where they can get a KO on the switch in like that.
You saw William go into team preview very quickly there, probably bringing the same 4 Pokemon. Not a lot of punish to that either, especially considering that Virizion, while helpful in other matchups, isn't helpful here, which gives you an effective 5 Pokemon to choose from. He could opt for the Snorlax here. Haven't seen it just yet. Might catch William off guard. Leads coming out in just a sec. Landorus, Metagross returning to the field. The Game 2 leads back. William pretty satisfied with their performance as Manectric and Porygon 2 come out to the field, going back to Game 1 for Joseph.
Yeah, I think Porygon 2 leads itself into a pretty good position here, threatening either Ice Beam onto Landorus or Foul Play onto Metagross. That Manectric can worry a little bit about Earthquake, but if you do also add an Ice Beam to Landorus, you're probably okay taking the trade of the Intimidated Earthquake for that Ice Beam, so you can more confidently just attack into that Metagross. And so I think this is a really strong position for Joseph to have led into, and immediately William's going to have to be on the back foot here, trying to find a way to deal with this Porygon 2 that isn't these 2 Pokemon. That probably involves getting Tapu Lele in from the back and starting to get something like a Shattered Psyche or those big Psychic Terrain Psychics off.
Would really like to see a bit of a risky play here from Joseph. I think that you can believe that Landorus won't Earthquake, and it has a free U-turn onto the Porygon 2 slot. By using that knowledge, you can double tap the Landorus slot, maybe a Volt Switch Ice Beam, and create a better position for yourself for the rest of the game. Mega Manectric coming out early this time, not going to go for the Protect plays. As we, the Clear Body, as we've mentioned, preventing that attack drop, but he really wants that for the Landorus, so he's okay taking that. Megagross returning to its Mega Form as well. And yes, I said Megagross on purpose, please believe me. The Protect, okay, not willing to risk that Manectric just yet, which is perfectly fine. Plays a vital role in weakening that Metagross, but we do see the U-turn come out onto the Porygon 2 slot. There's no Protect to really punish that like there was in Game 2, so we're going to see Landorus get out of there.
Yeah, maybe also hoping that that U-turn will be going into Manectric. If you block that U-turn with Protect and then just Ice Beam the Landorus, that's a really valuable turn, something worth going for.
Tapu Lele coming back to the field as it has in just every game we've seen so far, making the field all weird. Not the worst because Tapu Fini is healthy and in the back. Stomping Tantrum being revealed for the first time. Going to get extra power on the next turn because of its failure into Protect. But Foul Play doing large amounts of damage to the Metagross. Won't be able to take a Volt Switch.
Yeah, absolutely. Won't be able to take a Volt Switch, and so won't be able to go for that giant Stomping Tantrum confidently. Maybe willing to trade the Volt Switch onto Metagross for the Psychic or Shattered Psyche onto Metagross. Gives Porygon 2 a free chance to attack. We haven't seen it show anything that's too much of a threat to this field position against Tapu Lele yet. So maybe a trade you're willing to take because Metagross is so low, but Metagross's offensive output is so valuable. We saw all those Iron Heads adding up towards the end of Game 2. If you don't have that at the end of the game and you're still having to deal with bulky Pokemon like Porygon 2 and Tapu Fini, it's much harder to break through them.
Joseph not willing to let Porygon 2 just yet. You don't want that damage. Misty Terrain will be set on the field. Maybe still wary of a Zen Headbutt from Metagross and the Shattered Psyche from Lele, more importantly.
And also, if it's just a Psychic coming towards the Manectric, could prevent the KO.
A Volt Switch here could mean a free switch in for the Incineroar, but we see the Snarl instead weakening that Tapu Lele by so much, not by just the attack drop, but because of the Terrain Switch. Lele just going for the Psychic, hitting that Manectric for probably 50%, I would. Oh, even less. Wow. Very well trained Manectric. Good turn for Joseph. Managed to create a position which I can still KO Metagross, but now your Tapu Lele is weaker. His terrain is up. He has the Volt Switch option. Has to be a little wary of the Landorus switching, but he's in such a spot where not too important.
Yeah, and you can easily cover that with a Muddy Water also, and really prevent that Landorus from switching in and punish this field position that is really strong for Joseph because Metagross is so vulnerable to whatever Manectric decides to do. Maybe even Snarl is a KO. It might be a little bit close, and if you do that, and then Tapu Lele special attack stat goes even lower, Tapu Fini wouldn't be worried at all. Manectric doesn't mind another Psychic. We've seen how little damage that did. Manectric, not a Pokemon that values its HP as much as some others, and so willing to take that weak Psychic.
Metagross getting out of there. He doesn't want to lose that just yet. Amoonguss returns to the field. Spore, not an option, and you see no switch from Lele either, so it has to wait a few turns to be able to do that. Snarl just coming back out, very comfortable with the idea of potentially KOing Metagross with it and weakening Lele further. Mungus dodging it, but its attack power doesn't matter too much. Not a huge turn, but the positioning is a bit better for William.
Yeah, 2 misses on Mungus stings a little bit there, but neither one would have done much damage. Likely would have just been regenerated off eventually. Don't think it would have put a Mungus into overheat KO range. Is the only thing that really could have mattered here. I think a Mungus comes onto the field in a decent spot, even though it can't spore anything. It's not really worried about the damage output of these 2 Pokemon too much. Maybe buys time for Tapu Lele to get off the field, try to get Psychic Terrain back later, and undo that Snarl drop and not just take another Snarl on the next turn.
You know, both players just cautiously approaching this turn. We saw, and the theme of this game has been KOs on the switch, eventually leading to a victory. You don't want to repeat that situation. Mungus getting out of there for the Landorus, hopefully not switching into a Muddy Water for William. The Intimidate not mattering, but this time against Joseph, as that usually happened for him. Volt Switch hitting that Lele for free, bringing in something not afraid of Landorus, while Fini, I would say, probably going for the Muddy Water.
Yeah, I don't see why you don't Muddy Water in that field position. Can't get spored. Maybe you take some poison attack from Amoonguss, but you're still putting out decent damage on both slots. Now it's much better damage on both slots with Muddy Water hitting. Oh, but it's not as the Water EMZ.
Oh no, that's Shattered Psyche. I couldn't remember how they were dressed either. You know, hopefully onto the Tapu Fini slot as Incineroar would just take that. Perfect, but it does go to the Incineroar. Incineroar, such a good switch there. Did not care about Lele at all and has the ability to press Fake Out for free on the next turn. Muddy Water hitting Landorus for huge damage, bringing that Lele to an inch of its health.
Yeah, you know, using that Snarl and change of terrain to force the Shattered Psyche to KO the damaged Manectric. I mean, that's not something you generally want to use your Z move for. And then further punished by Volt switching out, getting good damage on the top of Lele, definitely putting it into the next Muddy Water KO range, and then just bringing in Incineroar and completely removing that Shattered Psyche. It's a really strong position for Joseph still.
Metagross returning to the field, going to be a KO unless that Muddy Water misses, and there's no reason not to press it. Tapu Fini looking like excellent position there. Fake Out on the Landers. You don't want that Earthquake to come out, and it picks up the KO all on its own. Even a Moonblast here might pick up that KO, but Metagross dodges the Muddy Water. Potentially huge. It's the fastest thing on the field. It has an extra chance to bring out some damage, potentially a critical hit. If in situations like this, you kind of need critical hits. Tapu Lele also coming just out, setting that terrain up.
Yeah, this is a tough position for William. Both these Pokemon so damaged that any attack they take is going to be a KO. And these two Pokemon they're facing down are full health and very bulky Pokemon. It's going to be hard without. You're going to need to double target to remove either, and it's unclear even with a double target if you can remove either. Stomping Tantrum plus Moonblast is probably a KO Incineroar, but the same's not true for Tapu Fini.
We do see that notorious ground punch doing a pretty large amount of damage to the Incineroar, followed up by the Moonblast onto the same slot, hoping to pick up a KO there. We do see the KO, but the Muddy Water could end this game. Amoonguss can't bring it back. We see the Waterium instead doesn't want to risk that miss. Doesn't want to risk that miss,
and also would have KO'd through Protect if that had come out. Just making sure that you get a KO this turn. It's interesting now with Incineroar down, that Amoonguss gets a little bit harder to KO. But if it's just Amoonguss and a couple other damaged Pokemon, Amoonguss won't have the offensive output to do it itself.
It chose to target down the Lele, seeing as either the less likely to switch or the more likely to protect. Metagross can't be saved through redirection of Muddy Water, as it is a spread move, and we still have two very healthy Pokemon in the back.
Yeah, I mean, you're just going to have to be asking for more Muddy Water misses. That's the only reason Metagross is still on the field now. You're going to need more of them.
Yeah. And we do see that part of the reasoning behind targeting down that Tapu Lele is the Intimidate weakens the Metagross, making it less of a threat. Amoonguss is a Pokemon with not a lot of comeback factor.
Yeah, Amoonguss is a Pokemon that might really want to Spore here to get Psychic Train, but it's going to need to Rage Powder any turn that Metagross doesn't protect to keep Manectric from just KOing, even if you're assuming those Muddy Waters miss. I would expect to see Metagross protect plus a Spore here, try to get something asleep so it's easier to play from the position you're in. But yeah, this is definitely a difficult spot for William. I just don't know how he comes back from it.
No, there has to be like very precise Spore plays. I mean, it's possible that Snarl even picks up the KO on the Metagross from here, and you can't redirect that either. Porygon 2 returning to the field, going to apply that Ice Beam foul play pressure that's been so important as the Metagross protects. Seeing that attempt for the safe sleep play. The Volt Switch hitting the Amoonguss. Excellent play.
Excellent play.
Resetting that Misty Terrain, making Spore a non-factor here, as it's now almost impossible, I would say, for William to make this comeback.
Yeah, absolutely calling the Metagross Protect. Doesn't attack that slot with either Pokemon. Sid Metagross just protects itself from nothing. Misty Terrain comes back out and blocks this incoming Spore.
Misty Terrain making that field all nice instead of weird swirling around. Spore doing nothing thanks to that, what is basically Safeguard effect. The Muddy Water now looking excellent. Amoonguss hasn't shown any attacking moves. Maybe it has Sludge Bomb with like an oddly trained, very offensive Amoonguss and a critical hit. You might see something, but even that would require some protect plays.
Even that, the Ice Beams from Porygon 2 just start to add up too quickly. It's just out of the question here. A really well played game by Joseph. You just keep maneuvering the field position, keep finding spots that were really powerful for him. That Snarl coming out at just the right moment to seize the game, I think.
I mean, I feel very comfortable saying congratulations to the modern gamer. Moving on to that top four, picking up that cash, picking up that CP, and inching ever closer to Worlds.
Neither Pokemon attacks Metagross again this turn.
Ironhead coming out, going to hit that Tapu Fini slot. Manectric just, pretty safe. He doesn't have large punish to Manectric. It's faster. He would have to have protected, not protected. He would have to predicted the non-attack into the Metagross slot, the Stomping Tantrum for free onto the Manectric, but we didn't see that. Go for the protect here. The Snarl once again, but Metagross protecting makes that at least another turn. Amoonguss becoming weaker, reducing its already small comeback factor as the Muddy Water follows that up. An accuracy drop would just even solidify Joseph's very likely victory even more. No drop, the Clear Smog, hitting that Tapu Fini probably for like some small damage, nothing, especially after that Snarl. The stats on Fini changed, those don't matter as the stats won't change.
Yeah, so I'd expect to see another Snarl come out this turn trying to get around that Rage Powder and just KO Metagross.
Just forfeits that.
Yeah, decided that he made one more final strong pivot to get that Manectric in the field under Misty Terrain so that it couldn't be Spore, and that was just too much.
I mean, William's showing that he cares so much about his buddy Metagross that he doesn't want to see it KO'd in that moment of futility. Again, congratulations to Modern Gamer. That CP and money is very nice, moving closer to not only to winning this tournament, but participating in the World Championships.
Yeah, And moving on to the top 4, lots of CP.
Lots of CP. I mean, the CP jumps when you get into top 8 are huge. You go from like, what, I think it's 200 to 150 to 125 to 100.
Sounds right to me.
No one quote me on that, please.
All right, well, we will take a very, very quick break and be right back with the first match of the top 4.
Stay tuned.